Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be talking about doing any kind of sales or e-commerce tracking in Excel today. I'm going to use an example from the Excel's free template gallery, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to know about the data that you're using, how it's formatted, and how that's going to kind of guide what you put into your dashboard. So if you go under the File menu in Excel and click New from Template, there's a bunch of template options available for free. In this example, I'm just using an online sales tracker. You can search for that in the upper right if you want to find that template. And here it is. It's essentially showing us a breakdown of whatever items we're selling in our store, how much revenue each of them makes up, the amount of profit per item. It's a super useful set of data, but it's a snapshot, meaning this isn't tracked over time. It's not showing individual transactions being made on our site. It's just an overview of each item and the number of sales that have been made of that item. So we're not going to be able to show how this changes over time. We're not going to be able to dig into individual transactions. It's very much a top-level snapshot for one point. Now, here's the thing. Most of the data that you work with, if you're working with sales or e-commerce, is not going to be in that format. Instead, it's going to be individual transactions, meaning it's not one product with aggregated numbers for how many of it has sold. It's actually just going to be a sale was made this day at this time, and another sale was made this day at this time. That's going to mean you have a much higher volume of data to work with. And it's also going to mean we have a time series. And this time series concept is so important because typically when we look at sales performance, e-commerce, anything like that, we really want to see how it's trending over time, when specific sales have occurred, and be able to compare things between different periods if we need to. But it's actually going to be a little bit harder to do that because, obviously, more data, typically less structured, it can be a little bit trickier to work with. So your starting point is always going to be to just look at the data itself. Figure out what each row in your table actually represents. If it's transactional level data, it's going to very much change the way that you visualize it. If we go back here, this aggregate data that's not transaction level, all we're really going to be able to see is overall sales, the ratio or proportion between those different products that are being sold. We're not going to be able to see how it changes over time. We're not going to be able to see when any transactions occurred. We're really just stuck kind of looking at a very, very brief overview of our performance. So, if you have transactional data, which in my opinion is ideal, you're going to have to probably use pivot tables to analyze it. Just trying to build a visualization with this entire table, it's going to be a little tricky. It's probably not going to aggregate the way you want it to or plot the way you want it to in a chart. So instead, we're going to take our tables and use them to generate pivot tables. Now, if you haven't learned about pivot tables before, it's probably the most important skill to develop in Excel. There's a million free tutorials out there online teaching you how to do this, so go check those out first. I just want to highlight a couple important aspects of this, especially if you're working with transactional data over time. So the first big one, if you have date ranges in there, your date ranges you might find in your pivot tables aren't breaking down properly. You maybe want to show data monthly, but instead it's showing it by day, or it's grouping it into the wrong months and not showing the year. So if that's the case, click into your pivot table where you see your date. In the upper section under Pivot Table Analyze, you go Group Selection, hit Group, and you're going to get a little dialog that pops up. You can click multiple elements here, years, quarters, months, days, hours, and what we'll do is automatically aggregate the data in your table according to your selection. So if your transactions are being reported by the minute, you don't have to look at it with minute level granularity. You can break that down and summarize it by month, by day, by week, by quarter, etc. That alone can save you a huge amount of time. Another common issue people run into are, hey, I got my sales data reported, but my actual sales price doesn't reflect how much money I'm making on each product because there's maybe a discount applied or something else. And you can use a calculated field in your pivot table to address this. So how we're going to do this is we're going to click into our pivot table, go up to the top, and where it says Fields, Items, and Sets under the Pivot Table Analyze area, you want to hit Calculated Field. What this will allow you to do is create a field that does any basic formula you want. So what we could do in here is take something like our sales value and subtract the discount for it, hit OK, and we'll add a calculated field in that will automatically take that discount out for us. So we're actually looking at the real sales price or the actual amount of money we made on the product as opposed to the listed price. This kind of thing comes up in all sorts of sales data, whether it's discounts or just different pricing structures, whatever. It's always nice to have that calculated field option. And just one last thing on pivot tables, slicers and timelines can make it much easier to filter your data in complex ways. So if you click into a pivot table, go to your Insert tab, in the upper right you'll have a slicer and a timeline option. I'm going to drop both these in in just to show you what they look like. Okay, so we've dropped in our slicers, our timeline, and we have a little pivot chart. This is just a chart generated from the pivot table. So here's the deal. If we want to filter this down, let's say to individual set of states or to an individual region, we can use both of these filters together to filter our source data here. And the beauty of this, as you can see here, is that if I select a certain region, only states within that region are going to be activated or able to be selected. So why is this so important? If you're trying to get really deep insights into how each region's performing, if you're trying to get really deep insights into how you slice it and dice it by product category, this is what's going to enable you to do that. What you see behind me here, this is all just standard Excel. These are all pivot charts, and this is a slicer that I'm using to filter it. And as you can see, you can do pretty complex stuff with this. And if you want to see more videos where I get into how to build this type of dashboard in the background, I've got a bunch of them on my profile breaking it down, or you can just hop on my newsletter where I send out free templates, including this one, that just show people how to start doing this themselves as well. It's totally free. I just send them out as tutorials. Hope that helps everybody. Some basic insights to help you build better, more useful, more insightful reports with your sales or e-commerce data. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help. Do my best to answer them. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.